Hello everyone, today's video we're going to be finishing up our series on the An-225 with an approach and landing tutorial. Now this aircraft is, to say it's a little interesting on a landing is putting it a little lightly. And a lot of it is about speed control and of course remembering that you got an awful lot of drag with this aircraft. So let's get started. So today we're going to be flying into Heathrow. We're going to be using runway 27 right for our primary approach in this one. We're going to be using the ILS to help us out a little bit on this one, and of course we'll switch over and I'll kind of do the last part of it for ourselves. Right now we're cruising pretty comfortably. We're at 10,358 meters. Everything seems to be running fine. We got plenty of fuel on board. And basically, it's just a matter of running through the motions and kind of getting everything ready. The first thing I've done is down here on my handy-dandy little GPS is I have actually dialed in the approach procedure that we're going to be using here. It is an interesting approach procedure, and it's actually one of the reasons why I chose it, because it involves a lot of very tight turns with an aircraft that is not very lightweight. So that makes it fun for us. The other thing we've done, of course, is if you float over to your navigational panel here, is we have a couple different boxes here. And the purpose of these, of course, is to dial in our critical frequencies that we're going to need for approach. So we're going to be using a frequency of 110.30. So if we come up here and do 110.3, we now have the ability to go up here and actually dial in the course. So taking a look at our records here, it looks like our course today is going to be 269 degrees. Now, depending on what style approach you're using here, this is one of the reasons I love having navigators, is what they'll do is they'll actually work out all the angles and vectors for you. So all you have to worry about is flying the plane. And like I said, it's kind of nice when you have a big crew. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get all of our angles all kind of preset in here. Like I said, I don't want to do anything. I usually like to use both of these for the purposes of ILS. Like I said, if we need to do like a crossing vector or something like that, we could go ahead and use this like as a different frequency. If we have any ADF, of course, we can go over to our arcs and we can dial in our ADF. But unfortunately, we just don't have anything like that today. And unfortunately, this magic box with so many fun buttons, none of it works. It fills me with a sigh. But hey, you got to do what you got to do, kind of a thing like that. One thing I want to warn you about real quick, though, is when you are using this, double check to make sure your units are correct. Like, I know this sounds like it's kind of like, oh, it shouldn't matter or anything, but that could really, really mess with your head when you're supposed to be hitting a DME like 8 or something like that, and it says 45. It's a good way to confuse people. The last thing we want to do is if you look above your head here, you want to confirm that your DME agrees. Now, one of the nice things is they actually took the time to kind of zip through, hey, who shut my Tara off? They actually took the time to make sure these sets of boxes actually talk to each other, so it makes it a little bit easier for you. Now, an interesting thing here is, and I really love this, is the fact that we have our navigational beacon selector switch here. Now, in the old days, what you had is an SP50 was basically your navigation tool, and your ILS is, you know, your ILS kind of a thing. So it's actually neat that they put this in here. This would tell you like all the different modes turned on and whether you're receiving a signal. So it's actually neat that they put this here. Don't play with it. It won't affect you at all. So now we need to decide when we're going to descend. So right now we're sitting here at a lovely, looks like about 36,000 feet-ish. Yeah, ish. And we know that our destination is about 136 miles away. Now, applying everybody's favorite rule, 36 times 3 would be 108 when we start our descent here. So our descent here is relatively straightforward. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to be coming down to our approach altitude there that we have listed on our little handy-dandy ILS plate there. So let's go ahead and check that. Here we are. Let's go ahead and take a peek. So it looks like all our frequencies are good. This is good. I got that all pre-set up. Transition altitude is 6,000 meters. This is when we got to change our barometric pressure on altimeters. I'm not going to worry about that. It looks like our final piece here is going to be 2,500 feet. It's going to be 2,400 on the RAT. And of course, we're going to be making a 3% decline here, 3 degree, I should say, which is, that's not bad. It's not bad. In the event that something goes wrong, we're going to be heading on a 318 here, which isn't too bad. And I'm taking a look at our minimums here. We have plenty of minimums. I'm not going to worry about that. The one downside to our minimums, of course, is we are a big airplane, so our minimums are a little higher than usual. And of course, we have our radar altimeter, which is in feet, which makes things a little bit more fun for us. But we'll do the math when we get back over this. So let's go ahead and dial in that 2,500 meters and do some quick conversions here. We'll take a peek to make sure we don't need to start descending. We got to start descending in a few minutes. So at least get this process going. So by the time I'm done running the calculations, I'll know exactly where we need to be. All right, pop that down, looks pretty good to me, about 1,500 meters. We'll do about 1,000, it's about 3,000 feet, and I will correct that once we have a better number here. Go ahead and use that's a pretty good speed right now for a descent. Obviously, we could go faster, we could go slower. I'm going to have to increase that, but you can see we were right on the edge of our maximum Mach number right here, so I definitely do not want to be rushing that if I don't have to. All right, that's close enough. I'm going to come over here. We have our Vel button, we have our Mach button, we have our speed button. I'm going to press that. Our engines are going to spool down, and now we're going to start sliding down as we do some math over here. Hit our converter. Obviously, like I said, we're dealing with 2,500 feet here. I'm going to go ahead and backspace that out. 2,500 feet is 762 meters. Wonderful. That's everything we need to know as far as that goes. So we're going to go ahead and select that as our altitude here. I'm going to go to 7. I'm going to go switch over to the mode. I wish there was just like a quick button you could press for that. That would make this much, much, much simpler. 762. And now you can see now we have our 2,500 feet selected, and we're basically ready to rock here. I can come back over here and set this to anything I want. So we're in vertical speed mode, basically flight level change if you want to think of L mode if you want to think. Our frequencies have been selected, our courses have been all activated, pretty much everything here is ready to rock. We have a couple little things we're going to have to do once we get a little bit closer to the ground, but I'll get a little closer to the ground first. All right, we're starting to get ourselves a little bit low and getting ready for our approach. A couple things we have to do is I've confirmed that my speed is less than 250 knots here. The other thing I've done is I've set my minimums here about 60 meters is about 200 feet, in case you're curious. The other thing, of course, we've done is we're getting ready to put our landing lights on. Now, the landing lights on this thing are kind of entertaining because if you hold your mouse over it, you're going to see it says left landing light and it says right landing light. It's not quite how it works. The way this works is the one on the left, if I press this and open it, you'll see it actually puts the landing lights out. When I click the switch up, it actually flips the landing lights on. So if you want to have some fun here, you can go ahead and retract the landing lights, even though the landing lights are still on at the moment. So if you actually want to pop them out so people can see, you have to hit both sets of those switches. Now, if I just go neutral, neutral, you're just leaving these things hanging out in the breeze here. So it's just a kind of a fun little thing that they have in this particular aircraft. So let's go get ourselves a little bit closer here. All right, here comes the hard part. So what we're going to do now is we're nice and on horizon hold mode. We're going to switch this over to our approach. We're also going to double check down here that we are in the land option. What you want to check here is to make sure all of your angles are correct. So just a quick idiot check. My needle's pointing towards the correct direction, which we wanted. We can see that we have our little course line. This is going to be for our localizer. Our DME is alive, and it does make sense at this particular point. So one of the things that makes this aircraft a little bit tricky to approach is inside their manual, they didn't give you a lot of things like numbers. So as you know, we're starting to slow to our approach here. We're going to just have to kind of meter everything in very gently. I popped in that first click of flaps there. That's basically going to get our slats out. It's not going to do anything too crazy. Now, one of the nice things they did for us with this aircraft to make our lives a little bit simpler as far as this comes on is you have these two handy-dandy little blue marks here to help select the approach speed that you need to go for. Unfortunately, when they referred to bugs inside of the actual manual, they didn't tell you which one of these two lines is the one you're supposed to be using. So don't worry, because we'll go ahead and show you an easy way to figure out which one's going to be correct there. I'm going to go ahead and pop in my next click of flaps here as we start to slow down. Now you can see I've got pretty tight angle here. I'm actually going to execute a bit of a left turn here. So we definitely want to start getting ourselves lined up at that runway there. That's pretty good right there. Good angle. Did a nice little bit of angle on there. Nothing too excessive. Go ahead and level this off. I'm going to go ahead and press our magic course stabilization button. This is the magic button here. I'm going to press that one. I'm also going to go ahead and select our pitch hold button. What we want to do now is what's going to happen is as we get closer to approach it, what's going to happen is we're going to grab onto that course. As you can see, that's starting to swing to the left. The aircraft is going to take a nice hard left turn, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to land. We're going to slow ourselves down a little bit. Definitely a full flaps approaching aircraft, that is for sure. There's the airport right off at 12 o'clock. I like to get the plane all nice and dirty way before we get to the point where we have to start getting crazy here, because this whole process is so fast. Despite the incredible scale of this plane, now you can see that how quick that happens. Now, one of the things you'll probably notice is at this speed here, this is our rotate speed, we're definitely starting to get a little bit slow there. I'm going to go ahead and bring the power back a little bit. Get ourselves to our approach speed. And this is one of the tricky problems with this aircraft is a lot of times it's just much easier to fly this part a little bit by hand and kind of come in where you need to sort of towards the end. All right, let's start getting slow. Last notch of flaps is in position. All right, so what's the trick to finding the magic speed on this one? Well, the good news is if you come right down here, you're going to notice you have an angle of attack indicator. This is your best friend. The good news here is that generally when we're doing a landing, we're looking for about 7 degrees AOA, which is about where we are right now. And I'm going to give just a little bit more power there to kind of bring that in here. Obviously, we don't want to have low AOA, simply angle of attack, because the problem with that naturally is as we're coming in for the landing, when you go to flare, you're going to float about half a mile before you're able to get the thing back under control. One thing I will do is I'm going to go ahead and arm the speed brakes. I'm going to slap that to the forward position. And we're just waiting now to catch up to our glide slope there. And we are on glide slope. Localizer capture, we are on glide slope. Now it's just a matter of keeping our speeds in the correct position here. Now, popping this thing on the ground is a bit of a process. So one thing I think they did when they modeled this is they probably gave us a little more pitch authority to our elevators than we probably needed. So as a consequence to that, when you do go to put this thing on the ground, you'd be amazed how much more sensitive it is. The other thing you have to think about is because of the tremendous amount of wing area that we have, the ground effect on this thing starts very, very, very high. As we're coming in here, we're definitely going to have to kind of keep mindful of that. The other thing, of course, is as we slow down, we have a significantly reduced amount of drag. This is me doing automatic throttle, by the way, while talking at the same time. There, yeah, that's pretty good. Angle of attack's a little low, but by the time we reduce power and bring this in, we'll be perfectly fine here. A little bit of that low-level turbulence. Aircraft is captured. We're in approach mode on CD. Everything looks good. Right on target. Speed looks good. Get my hand right on the controls. You're going to notice it gets a little pitchy on you. That is just because of the way the new low-level turbulence was modeled over enough flights in here. We are on about as on speed as I think I can get here without making myself insane. I feel really sorry for these engines. I'm going to go ahead and get the reverser handle in the correct position. Get my head out a little bit here. Looks pretty good. Man, this turbulence is awful strong for an aircraft of this size, not going to lie. All right, watching our radar altimeter tick down, you can see that value over here on the right. Remember, that's in meters, it's not in feet. So when you see 200, that does not mean it's time to land. I'm going to go ahead and take over control here. There we go. A little high. Power needs to be brought out. Power just a little bit there. Looks good. Flying this thing is like flying your house from the porch. Oh. Now remember, it's like a 747. You're up pretty darn high. Speed's good. We're just going to slowly pull the nose up just a little bit, and we're just going to hold it. We're not going to do anything else. Just fly the plane down. Remember, you're long. And now we're down. I'll let the nose come down. Speed brakes out. Thrust on. Be easy with the pedals. All right, we're less than slow down enough. Go ahead and cancel out the reverser. Clean up the plane, and this would be a great time to go ahead and get the auxiliary power unit all fired back up and be ready to go ahead and do any sort of ground servicing that we need to do on it. So this has been a really, really fun series to make. This plane is quite a trip. There's a lot going on with this. At the end of the day, they definitely optimized it for single pilot operations. Part of me likes that, part of me doesn't like that. But again, it all comes down to what your preferences are, what you like to do. I will certainly fly this plane plenty because it's just unique. And look at the size of this thing. It's ridiculous. And also, for the folks who designed Heathrow, it's with the tube. Other than that, enjoy.